Leeroy Beeby. Thank you so much for coming on the Inner Edison Podcast. I appreciate being here today.
Not a problem. Happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
You're welcome. It's probably been a while. I'm sorry, it takes a little bit of time to be on here. And I just looked at my Podmatch. I have 43 people asking me to be on. And, and I'm not bragging. It's just one of those things that you can't get behind on anything. You got to stay on top of stuff. Don't mind. And so get some virtual assistants or something else. That's what I've done. And even with that, I've loaded them up and I still have so much more stuff to do.
Not enough hours in the day, right?
There just isn't. I'm just glad you can hire people who will do just the job and get it done. All right. So your background, have you always been in this, because what is your background before I assume what it is?
Yeah. I mean, I'm an accountant pretty much. I qualified as a chartered accountant in South Africa through KPMG. At which point I moved to Bermuda to do some work abroad as a consultant.
Why didn't you stay there?
It's a small place. It's kind of, you go to the grocery store and it's hard not to bump into people that right? Sometimes I'm sort of an introvert at times, and sometimes I just want to be isolated and not really have to bump, it can be quite energy consuming to always be social, but on that side, I was just small and I wanted to experience the rest of the world. I mean, I still think about my days back in Bermuda and the good weather and the warm ocean. I think of that time fondly.
Yeah, so I lived in San Diego for 20 years, and every time I was down there, I'd be riding on the coast, doing my bicycling, cycling, and going, God, I get to do this every day, and people come here, travel from all over, and then now I'm in Northern California, and I don't have the ocean next to me, so it's a totally different world. And I go, why did I leave? There was reasons why I left, but I totally get it. And back to your introvert, statement. Most people don't understand. Introverts don't mind to be with people, but then they got to go home and recharge, and they don't want to be around anybody. They don't want to be bothered. That's the difference. People don't understand the terminology when people say I'm an introvert. It doesn't mean you don't want to go out. You can't go out and talk to people. You just have to go home and recharge. You don't want to see anybody, talk to anybody, or do anything. That about right?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, you need that alone time to recharge, and then you can go out and socialize. Right. But
But I think people think introvert means that you are afraid to go out. No, that's not what that means.
It's just we recharge by being isolated for some time, and then we can go socialize and do what we need to do during that time. Because socializing is a very important part of life.
You have to, whether you want to or not. All right. So how long? And you were an accountant, and then did you always want to get into entrepreneurship, or?
Yeah, I mean, my parents, I think they've started like 11 businesses when I was growing up, from, construction companies to schools to my mom actually just sold her psychiatric ward. She's a clinical psychologist. So, they've dabbled in a lot of different things, at least in South Africa. And I think there was just one of the things that actually drove me to starting a business was, at least this time trying it, was once I finished working in Bermuda, I came to Canada, Toronto, studied at the University of Toronto, and did my master's in business. And they've got a program there that teaches you, you can work for startups or for a short period of time and get credit for that, which was great. And I did that, and that really opened up my eyes. I mean, economic environment in South Africa is very different to something like in a first world country like Canada, right? It's a lot more opportunity. Once I finished my degree, I'm still very close to my family, and I am, I was faced with a decision of, either going back to South Africa and running some of my parents' businesses, trying to find a 9-to-5 job in Canada, or, just branching out and trying something new and take a risk, because I was in my early 30s, and start a business. So, I felt that for me to warrant the decision of not spending time with my family, I had to take a risk. So I started a business, and now we're almost 5 years into the business now. So it's been some time.
Yeah. No, I just didn't, some people come from a background, a family like you that have entrepreneurs, they own businesses, and some people come from and then nobody owns and they're the first one. And because a lot of times people will tell their kids, don't go to business, go work for a company, because that's where the security is, and that's not necessarily correct. Entrepreneurs have issues, and what I mean by that is we sometimes have problems where our companies get hurt over a period of time, not because of what we did, but because of the environments that change, and so do companies, and that's how people get laid off and let go.
No, that's true.
All right, so how did you find this problem that needed to be fixed, the solution for this problem that you created because I assume that's how you created your company.
So yeah, just the accent there is the South African. So just for clarification,
nobody's worried about it.
Okay.
Just
so how we stumbled on this idea was, after finishing my MBA at the University of Toronto, and going through that startup program, I was faced with this. I wanted to start a business, so I wanted to find a co-founder. I really wanted to start a technology business. And there's a really good startup scene here in Toronto, a lot of networking events, and I ended up meeting my co-founder at one of those events through a friend who referred me. So one of my hobbies is actually rock climbing, and then a buddy at a gym actually introduced me to my co-founder, we hit it off, and eventually we landed on wanting to build something to help with the construction industry, because both our parents came from the construction industry. We just felt like there was a statistic that said like 90% of construction businesses fail within I don't know, it's 5 years or something. And we were like, whoa, that's quite a crazy statistic when you think about, how much construction there is. And ended up building like this project management software to help contractors understand the profitability of their jobs. And that eventually expanded into offering bookkeeping services on top of that. As we saw, bookkeeping was one of the main reasons why they weren't able to get that profitability reporting that was
Leeroy,
accurate.
before you keep going, bookkeeping is a problem for everybody.
Yeah.
And it's just because you can hire somebody who's supposedly doing something, and then they come back and go, oh, sorry, here's your books, and I didn't do anything.
Yeah.
And then now you have to scramble to get those things fixed, and that is how it could really affect people.
Yeah, exactly. And to be fair, I mean, most people don't have a background in it. It's sort of like whenever you're thinking about bookkeeping, it's always with taxes in mind, and you're walking on eggshells and those sort of things. And yeah, I mean, that's just particularly bad for construction, especially when you want a more complex reporting out of your bookkeeping, other than just, hey, this is my net profit. You want to know what your profit on a job basis is, right?
And you want to know on a weekly or monthly basis, so you can plan for the future and you know what you're going to have, and not go, I don't have enough money to pay my payroll. What are you talking about? I mean, just things that people think they have money there, but they don't have the right. And I talk to everybody, and everybody, this is the biggest issue still to this day, is bookkeeping having issues.
Yeah. And I mean, a lot of that is, that. So we started the project management, we started bookkeeping, we did really well. I mean, we grew to I think it was what is it when you say 7 figures? So 7 figures within 18 months. I had to hire over 20 employees.
Wow.
When we started offering the bookkeeping services, and I learned a lot when you have to hire things. Speaking of my parents, one of the big concerns while I was growing was how can you rely on people, right? Like, how do you know they're going to do the work to the level that you require of them? And I think every business owner who's looking to grow has that innate fear of okay, hey, yes, I have to trust someone. And how do I do that? It's not something they really teach you at school. You could either be the micromanager, double check everything, but when you're growing so rapidly, do you really have that luxury to check everyone's work? As we were talking about at the start of this podcast, there's only so many hours in the day, right? And we were a fully remote bookkeeping organization. And, when I started the bookkeeping departments, there were some things that I wanted that, I didn't enjoy at my time at KPMG, which was I didn't want to fill in timesheets. It was going to fix. So it was going to be a fixed pricing subscription model for the bookkeeping, fully remote. Those were some of the main aspects of what we designed, and that's not really unique anymore to what I was doing at the time. A lot of bookkeeping firms do that too today. But I made a lot of hiring mistakes, and I often picked up those hiring mistakes quite late in the bookkeeping workflow. And one of the things that I hated the most, that really got under my skin, was when a client came to me and told me they saw mistakes in the books, and I hadn't been able to pick that up sooner, right? I mean, I wouldn't say that, this was like a systemic problem, but there was just like, let's just say, 20% of my hires, I had to sort of like go through this experience where, it could have been my fault too, because I didn't give enough time for training, or they just, took advantage because it's a fully remote environment. There's a whole bunch of reasons that go into that. But the outcome was always the same. I made a bad hire. It cost the business. It cost the reputation, and and I identified it too late, right? And I wanted a way to automate a way to see whether someone was making mistakes in my bookkeeping for my clients, so that I could proactively respond to that as opposed to reactive, right? And that would either be like just putting the employee on a performance plan sooner, or just figuring out what's going on, right? Sometimes an employee's doing really well, then all of a sudden they're doing really badly, and something might be happening in their personal life at that time, and you sort of need to know that so that you can accommodate the work accordingly. And what ended up happening was we built this tool internally, which was just basically looked at what work people were doing in the books. And then based on the set of rules, I could get notified at the end of the day if there were any potential errors that required my attention, like some significant errors would happen. I would get notified. So here's an automation telling me like, hey, you might want to check out this file or check out this employee. There's something going wrong there, or potentially going wrong. And ended up building that tool internally and saw real tremendous value out of it, and ended up going, okay, well, I felt so passionately about this, moved away from the bookkeeping firm and sort of started this company by itself, focusing on this product, which essentially what we could call it is like Grammarly for bookkeeping, if you're familiar with Grammarly, or just a tool that's an automation error detection tool that will say, hey, at the end of the day, these are the mistakes you're doing, and this is how you should fix them. So giving advice on how to fix them. We also work with not only bookkeeping firms in selling this product, but we do work with individuals who are doing the books themselves, like business owners always trying to hustle. And I think one way you can always structure this is just saying like, hey, look, as a bookkeeper, if you're going to run the books yourself and you don't have a background, your goal shouldn't be to get them right, but more so just to like get 80% of the way there, and sure, by the end of tax season, you could get some adjustments fixed, but trying to make that process as seamless as possible can go a long way. And all you have to do is ensure that the transactions have certain information in them. So, that's kind of like where the product sort of came out of, was just, the challenges I had around essentially quality assurance within my business, and the traditional methods of, hey, like, because the traditional method follows, it's called like a month end. At the end of the month, or a week after the end of the month, you look at all the transactions coded for the prior month up until that. So, hey, it's, March 5th right now, and we're looking at all the transactions coded for February, and we've got like checks that we need to run through to find whether there's any mistakes. That traditional method suffered because I would only pick up those mistakes, a month after they'd been made, and that's assuming the transactions even coded in that month, right? If someone in your accounting software, you can code it to any month that you want, and you hope that I pick up that mistake, but the traditional method falls short that way. So, this tool that we built really focused on, hey, what have you done in the last 24 hours or week, regardless of when it's reported? Were there mistakes in it? Yes or no? And if there are, we'll escalate those to you to fix, or we could escalate it to your manager to help you fix.
And so with that you created the software, and when you did it for yourself, really, to see where everything going. Now, was it set up to tell the person who was encoding the stuff what they did wrong, or was it for you to find out and then you had to have a talk with them?
No, so I mean, you could set it up in either way, right? I think,
No, I mean, when you were creating it originally, was it just for you to be able to find the stuff faster, or was it to help them understand their mistakes? Like this is, you follow me?
Yeah, it was for them. So I mean, we had some offshore staff, right, that didn't necessarily understand the like sales tax coding, because it wasn't, they're not growing up, right. And we service clients in the US and Canada, right? So having a tool just telling you like, hey, this should have a sales tax coding on it, and notifying the bookkeeper of that, they could look at that and go, okay, that makes sense, and go back into the transaction and edit it. But really what ended up the workflow being was, hey, I shared the feedback with the team through the tool. And then at month end, when I reviewed, then I would double check whether they actually addressed the issues or not. And if they didn't, because my month end checks went through it, like identified those problems, I could sit down with them and address them there. Or if I saw like a recurring issue was coming up, it really depends on the type of error. But that's what was also really nice about the product was it told you who made the error in the books. Because quite often when you set up a bookkeeping structure with your client, they might manage some component of it, like the sales invoicing part. It's not, it's very rare that you see like an outsourced bookkeeping firm doing the sales invoicing for a client, because that's specific to the client. They know how to deal and chat with their clients in managing sales. But quite often you could see clients making mistakes in the books through this reporting tool. So then I could also communicate that to the client, or have a notification sent to the client saying, hey, you just did this wrong. Hey, you applied the payment, but didn't apply it against this open sales invoice. You might want to do that, right? So giving them that feedback a lot sooner too, to help them get on the job training essentially.
Since you talk about errors, what's the biggest error that most business owners make in their books?
Yeah, I think the most simple one is just not adding a vendor to it or a customer to a transaction. Just leaving that blank. And QuickBooks lets you do that, right? Like they don't require that.
Are you talking the memo, or are you talking about category?
I'm talking actually like when you code a transaction in QuickBooks, you can specify the customer name, right? Like the vendor or the vendor. So,
right.
Leaving that blank and not adding a vendor, it's the most frequent and quite significant error you can make, because you can infer a lot of information as a bookkeeper or a tax accountant if they're doing your taxes, or even our tool can infer a lot of information if they know who the vendor is. Leaving that blank, it's like, okay, well, we're just going to guess that the categorization is correct. Because like, for example, if it's a Home Depot purchase, you're most likely going to code it to job materials. But if you leave it blank, well, how do we know it's,
or what job was it for?
Yeah. And then there's more complex issues of like, the one that sort of always got on my skin was like, and it's a real important one, is when the bank account balance in your accounting software didn't match the banking balance in your actual bank account.
You mean they didn't reconcile?
And owners couldn't really understand like why that was the case. Like, okay, sure, checks might have not been deposited, but which checks? Because those are cash flow risks, right? Like,
right.
Or it could be a mistake that the bookkeeper made. So those would, I would say, are like the two biggest mistakes. And then the ones that would probably hurt the client the most are things like duplicating sales. So, hey, you saw this deposit come in, you had a whole bunch of open sales invoices that you should have applied that deposit to, but instead you just coded it directly into sales. That would duplicate your sales income, and now you're paying more taxes because of that. So from a customer perspective, that's also, it's quite an easy mistake to make in the accounting software. Because the one thing about
go ahead. I'll ask mine afterwards. Go ahead.
Because the one challenge with these bookkeeping software tools is, they market themselves as anyone can do the books, which you've got to be very careful, because as a consequence, making a tool very easy to use also means it's very easy to make a mistake with.
Have they made it easier to get the information from your bank account into the software?
They have, if you use things like bank feed, but even that's limited in the sense of like sometimes the bank feed can disconnect and then reconnect, and then it's pulling in the same transaction. So duplicate expenses is another way you would pay more taxes, is because you counted that expense twice and you don't know that. And you could have maybe picked that up if you were reconciling the bank balance. But our tool would tell you things like that, right? Like, hey, here are transactions that don't match to your bank account. Or, hey, here's transactions with the same amount and the same vendor on the same date or within the same date. It looks like a probable duplicate expense.
Yeah. Now, there's no AI out there yet fixing this yet, right?
No, because the thing is, it's a very hot topic right now, AI in accounting. Now, the issue with AI is it's not deterministic. or non-deterministic. So like you could give it the same prompt and give a different outcome every time. So what's nice about our tool is very rule-based. Like, hey, like we're actually automating the how we envision our product being used is you're going to have an AI tool doing the books for you and the categorization, but you need something to audit that work or review that work. That's where we want to position ourselves as a tool that will review the work being done to notify if there are problems. Because next thing AI codes 1,000 transactions incorrectly, like when do you want to be notified of that potential error? Like at year end when it's made that same mistake consistently. There are some risks with that. But I think you still need something to check whether that's a person or AI's work to ensure it's accurate. And that's kind of where we want to place ourselves.
Right. Because I use prompts all the time for stuff. And I had to add up deposits on a bank account multiple months for a bank statement loan for somebody. And it was off by 20 grand.
Yeah.
I asked it, recheck your numbers. Oh, I made a mistake. I was off by 20 grand. Yeah. So you have to, and I try to explain to people, it makes mistakes. I use it to, when I was doing my continuing education, I already finished, but on iPad, it's not supported. So it allows you to copy and paste the questions in. So I copied and pasted the questions in ChatGPT and I said, answer these. And it got one wrong out of the 150 or whatever. And that's pretty good. And I would have taken that. I would have, but I'd already done my continuing education, already answered the questions. So I don't want anybody turning me in. I just wanted to see if it could do it for me.
Yeah. No, I think that's going to be the real challenge with AI sure, it will help us input the information, but by nature, I feel like a lot of us are bad at reviewing work. It's something we can rush. And you always need to double check the AI. So it's, there always needs to be a human in the loop. It's like what they reference, a human in the loop is kind of important to check.
I mean, I use it for everything. And I actually used it yesterday and it grabbed another person's name with the same thing and added their information into my podcast. So I use it for my podcast, what I'm going to do, right? I take the chat, wherever I get your information from, I tell it to look there, grab it, put it in a post and everything else. It grabbed somebody else, the same last name, a firefighter in San Diego for this Helping the Brave I was on yesterday. And it was like, it's like, that's not me. I'm like, I can't believe it did that. It was the first time it's done something like that for me.
I've heard stories of like AI tools sharing the incorrect financial information or someone else's financial information on a prompt, right? So that's the other problem with AI is like, what is the data security? Financial security is a real important part of running a bookkeeping or accounting firm, right? So you don't want the AI, going to someone else's client file and sharing payroll information, for example, by accident,
or to the IRS by accident,
something like that. Yeah,
I'm just saying it's because it can. I mean, I've used it to have it look at credit reports after I've taken out the important information in there, so it can't and just tell me how to get how to make these a better FICO score, and it does we used to use these what if scenarios, pretty much the same thing, but it was inside this thing. Well, now AI can tell me in seconds what to do as long as I take out the pertinent information, because you don't want to have their names, their social security number, any of that kind of stuff in there, because now they're going to have that information for, it's stored somewhere.
Yeah.
How else is it learning if it's not stored somewhere?
Yeah. And that part of AI is quite scary.
That part of it?
Well, yeah, there's multiple parts.
It's called Terminator. It became self-aware. That's what we have to worry about. You South Africans always creating this crazy stuff for us.
Yeah. Well, Elon's on another mission there. But anyway, we could talk about that for quite a while.
Yeah, I mean, he's cleaning our stuff up, which needs to happen. And can't hide that stuff, and that's why if you have nothing to say, you pound on tables, and that's what the other side is doing, is pounding on tables and projecting. And if you know anything about projection, that is when I did something wrong, I put it on you like you did it, and that's exactly what they're doing. It's time to clean up the government, clean everything up. We need a smaller government. And I'll get off my soapbox now. All right, so what's going forward for checkthelevel.com? That's the name of your software, right?
Or the website. I mean, we call it the Level Copilot. our big focus is really building the Grammarly for bookkeepers. So helping everyday business owners just feel more confident in their books if they are going to do it themselves. Well, on the flip side, when it comes to bookkeeping firms, just giving them access to tools that help them assess the performance of employees, right? As well as whether that's an AI bot or an actual employee, to be able to just prevent those mistakes that would otherwise cost them a lot of money. I think, there is research says that employee turnover is one of the most expensive things a business can experience, right? And I think, no business owner enjoys that I have to let you go or put you through a performance check conversation. So we just want to get ahead of that, right? And also the other benefits of it is just empowering people to actually feel more confident in hiring. So I mean that's kind of the future for us at Level.
So how did you ever figure out how to hire somebody?
Yeah,
because you talk about how people have a fear, and it is true, because I've done some pretty good hires, and I've done some bad hires. And the problem is, so I know somebody I'm helping to do a transaction on loan, and they're trying to get a job with the sheriff department as a dispatcher. That is a long time to get on there. And same with Kaiser. If you ever go get work at Kaiser, you're not hired on the spot. It's a month to 60 days or 90 days process. And I think one of the problems with us entrepreneurs is we hire fast and fire slow, when you should be hiring slow and firing fast.
Yeah, I know 100%. I know my biggest mistakes were always hiring too fast and not like defining that process properly. I think, in hindsight, if I could redo some things and I give advice to myself on hiring, is just, and it's hard because sometimes you have the demand and it's hard to say no to money, but you can save yourself a lot of headache and a lot of problems if you, one, take it slow, two, incorporate some kind of test in the interview process to assess the person's ability to actually perform the work. It's kind of a little more tricky now because with AI, someone could just go in there and put your test in there. So I'm not quite sure how to get around that. Maybe it's just an in-person live test. But really, and if you are going to it's important to write out the responsibilities or the mission statement for the employee and test based on that, right? If this employee is going to take charge of a department within your organization, well, you need to know that they have the expertise to actually execute on that. And the way to do that is through testing.
Gotcha. No, a lot of people still have that problem. And are you still fully remote for your company?
Yeah, here we are.
Yeah. I mean, do you have less employees now than you did when you had the bookkeeping company?
Yeah, we're a much smaller team, much more streamlined. I prefer smaller team environments. And I think the other thing I would advise is, I think as entrepreneurs, we define success by how quickly our business is growing, and I think that can lead to quite some mental health challenges that you have. I think it's really important to set your bar and live by that. You don't have to make $1 million, but you don't have to grow $1 billion business. If your goal is to take an X amount of salary back home, it doesn't mean you have to have that kind of huge growth, because growth brings a lot of challenges, and
I call it headaches, but
headaches.
You can call it challenges. But that's so what I've been in the mortgage industry, and our industry has taken a huge hit in the last 2 years because interest rates going up 5%, and it allowed me to relook at what I was doing and how I was doing it. And I'm much leaner and meaner now. And if it keeps going the way it's going, I won't need a huge team anymore. Plus, I hire, I do a lot of podcasting, radio, and cut up video and all that stuff. And I'm hiring VAs for that, which you can totally control what they do now and how they're set up in different companies. And you don't have to have these employees. Canada's probably the same way, but in California, employees have more rights than the business owner.
Yeah.
And so I'm at the point where I prefer contract people. And the problem is with contract people in California, they're employees. So I have to get contracted people outside of California.
Yeah.
And fortunately, that's what happens. You know, when they start paying people $20 an hour to serve fast food restaurants, that's a problem.
Yeah. No.
All right, Leeroy, it was nice to meet you. People go to the website, checkthelevel.com, check out the software. You guys do free trials if somebody wants to try it out.
Yeah, there's a 30-day free trial, no credit card required. Yep. So feel free to check it out. I love your feedback.
Yeah, if somebody wants to get a hold of you, how do they find you?
LinkedIn, or just email us at contact@checkthelevel.com. Those are 2 great ways to get a hold of me.
All right. Leeroy, thank you so much for being on the show today. I appreciate you being here.
Likewise.